My name is Azariah Montgomery, and I'm 68 years old. 2 weeks ago, I stood in my bathroom at 3 a.m., looking at myself in the mirror, and I finally admitted something I'd been denying for 40 years. I'd wasted my entire life begging people to love me, and not one of them ever did. My face was swollen from crying. My eyes were red and puffy. My hands were shaking as I gripped the edge of the sink to keep myself standing. On the counter beside me was my phone. On the screen was a text message from my daughter Evangeline. She was 42 years old. The message said, "Mom, I need you to stop calling me. I've told you before I have my own life now. I don't have time to deal with your emotional needs. Please respect my boundaries." Beside my phone was a crumpled birthday card. My birthday had been 3 days ago. I turned 68. Not one person had called me. Not one person had sent a card. Not one person had remembered. Except me. I'd bought myself this card at the dollar store. I'd written inside, "Happy birthday to me from me." And then I'd cried so hard I couldn't breathe. I looked at myself in that mirror, and I asked myself a question I should have asked 40 years ago. Why am I begging people who don't love me to love me? And the answer that came to me was devastating, because I never learned to love myself, because I never learned that God's love was enough, because I spent my whole life looking for love in all the wrong places, in a husband who abused me, in children who used me, in friends who abandoned me, in a church that judged me. I'd begged for love from everyone, except the one who'd loved me all along. And it had destroyed me. Standing there at 3 a.m., looking at my broken reflection, I made a decision. I was done begging. I was done chasing people who didn't want me. I was done sacrificing myself for people who didn't appreciate me. I was going to spend whatever time I had left on this earth learning to love myself, learning to accept God's love, learning that I was enough, even if nobody else thought so. But before I could move forward, I had to look back. I had to understand how I'd gotten here. How a woman who'd been raised in church, who'd loved God her whole life, who'd tried so hard to be a good person, how that woman had ended up alone, unwanted, and broken at 68 years old. So let me take you back. Let me tell you the story of how I spent 40 years begging for love, and how I finally learned that I should have been asking God instead. Before I tell you this powerful story about love, loss, and learning to find yourself in God, I need you to do something for me right now. Subscribe to this channel because Azariah's story is going to show you that God's love is the only love that never fails. Hit that like button and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from: United States, United Kingdom, Jamaica, Canada, South Africa, Trinidad, Australia. Let me know you're here with me. Now let's go back to where it all started. 40 years ago, I was 28 years old and desperate to be loved. I'd grown up in a home where love was conditional. My mother loved me when I was obedient. My father loved me when I made him proud. My siblings loved me when I was useful to them. I'd never experienced unconditional love. So when I met Solomon Montgomery at church and he showed me attention, I thought I'd found it. Solomon was 35, a deacon at New Hope Baptist Church. He was handsome, charismatic, and respected in the community. He had a good job as a manager at a manufacturing plant. He seemed like everything I'd ever wanted. He started pursuing me with an intensity that should have been a red flag but felt like love. He called me every day. He brought me flowers. He told me I was beautiful, special, the woman he'd been waiting for his whole life. 3 months after we met, he proposed. "Azariah, I want to make you my wife," he said, getting down on one knee at church after Sunday service. "Will you marry me?" Everyone in the church clapped and cheered. The pastor congratulated us. The mothers of the church hugged me and told me how blessed I was. I said yes because I wanted to be wanted. I said yes because I was afraid if I didn't, I'd never get another chance. I said yes because at 28, I was getting older, and people were starting to whisper about why I wasn't married yet. I said yes for all the wrong reasons. We got married 3 months later in a big church wedding. I wore a white dress. Solomon wore a black tuxedo. We said vows in front of God and 200 witnesses. We promised to love, honor and cherish each other until death do us part. But Solomon didn't mean those vows, and it didn't take long for me to find out. The first sign that something was wrong came on our honeymoon. We went to a beach resort in Florida. It should have been romantic. It should have been the happiest week of my life. Instead, it was the week I learned what Solomon was really like. On the second night of our honeymoon, we went to dinner at the resort restaurant. I ordered fish. Solomon ordered steak. When the food came, my fish was overcooked and dry. "This isn't good," I said to Solomon. "I think I'm going to send it back and ask for something else." Solomon's face changed. His smile disappeared. His eyes got cold. "Don't embarrass me," he said quietly. "What?" I said, confused. "I said don't embarrass me," Solomon repeated, his voice hard. "We're on our honeymoon. People are looking at us. If you send that food back, you're going to make me look bad. Like I brought you somewhere cheap where the food isn't good. Just eat it and be grateful." "But it's not good," I said. "And we paid for this. I should be able to." "Azariah," Solomon's voice was ice, "eat the fish." I looked at him and saw something in his eyes that scared me. So I ate the fish, all of it, even though it was terrible, even though it made me feel sick. Because I'd been married for 3 days, and I'd already learned that Solomon didn't want a wife who had opinions. He wanted a wife who obeyed. That night in our hotel room, Solomon didn't apologize. He didn't acknowledge that he'd been harsh with me. Instead, he blamed me. "You need to learn to be more considerate of me," Solomon said. "Marriage is about making your husband look good. When you complain about things in public, you make me look like I can't provide for you. I work hard. I deserve respect. If you can't give me that, we're going to have problems." I should have left right then. I should have called someone to come get me. I should have annulled the marriage. But I didn't, because I'd been raised to believe that marriage was forever, that divorce was sin, that a good Christian woman made her marriage work no matter what. So I stayed, and I told myself it would get better. It didn't get better, it got worse. Over the next few years, a pattern developed. Solomon would be charming and loving in public. At church, he was the perfect husband, holding my hand, complimenting me, talking about how blessed he was to have me as his wife. But at home, he was someone else entirely. He criticized everything I did. My cooking wasn't good enough. My housekeeping wasn't thorough enough. I wasn't pretty enough, wasn't smart enough, wasn't spiritual enough. "You need to lose weight," he'd say. "You're getting fat." "This house is a mess," he'd say, even though I'd spent hours cleaning. "Why can't you be more like Sister Johnson?" he'd say, comparing me to other women at church. Nothing I did was ever good enough for Solomon. And every time he criticized me, every time he tore me down, I tried harder. I cooked better meals. I cleaned more thoroughly. I lost weight. I tried to be the perfect wife. Because I thought if I could just be good enough, he would love me. But the more I tried, the worse he treated me. 3 years into our marriage, Solomon hit me for the first time. I'd burned dinner. The chicken was a little overdone. Solomon came home from work, took one bite, and threw his plate against the wall. "You can't do anything right," he shouted. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice shaking. "I'll make something else." That's when he slapped me, hard, across the face. I stood there in shock, my cheek burning, tasting blood in my mouth. "Don't make me do that again," Solomon said calmly. "If you just do things right the first time, I wouldn't have to correct you." He walked out of the kitchen. I heard him turn on the TV in the living room like nothing had happened. I stood there crying, holding my face, wondering how my life had become this. A few months after Solomon first hit me, I found out I was pregnant. I thought maybe a baby would change things. Maybe Solomon would be kinder. Maybe becoming a father would soften him. I was wrong. I had 3 children with Solomon over the next 8 years. Evangeline, Josiah, and Nehemiah, 3 beautiful bobbies that I loved with everything in me. But Solomon barely acknowledged them. Oh, at church he'd hold the bobbies, smile for pictures, talk about how blessed he was to have a family. But at home, he acted like the children were burdens. "Keep them quiet," he'd snap when they cried. Why can't you control them? He'd say when they misbehaved. They're your responsibility, he'd tell me. I work all day. The least you can do is take care of the kids. So I did. I took care of the kids by myself. I got up with them in the night. I changed diapers, made bottles, dealt with tantrums, went to doctor appointments, helped with homework, all by myself. And through it all, I kept trying to win Solomon's love. I kept thinking that if I could just be a good enough wife, a good enough mother, he would finally see my worth. But he never did. The abuse got worse. The hitting became regular. The insults became constant. And the worst part was that I had nowhere to turn. When I tried to talk to my mother about my marriage, she said, "You made your bed, now lie in it. Marriage is hard. You just have to pray and trust God." When I tried to talk to the pastor's wife at church, she said, "Submit to your husband as unto the Lord. A good wife can change a man's heart through her gentle spirit." When I tried to talk to my best friend Delilah, she said, "Girl, all men are like that. You just have to accept it." Nobody helped me. Nobody believed me. Nobody told me that what Solomon was doing was wrong. So I stayed. For 25 years, I stayed in that marriage. 25 years of abuse. 25 years of begging Solomon to love me. 25 years of trying to be good enough. And then, on our 25th anniversary, everything fell apart. On our 25th anniversary, I planned a special dinner at home. I cooked all of Solomon's favorite foods. I bought a new dress. I decorated the dining room with candles and flowers. I thought maybe, after 25 years, Solomon would finally appreciate me. Maybe he'd tell me he loved me. Maybe he'd acknowledge everything I'd sacrificed to make our marriage work. Solomon came home from work at his usual time. He walked through the door, saw the decorated dining room, saw me in my new dress, and his face hardened. "What is this?" he asked. "It's our anniversary," I said, smiling nervously. "I made us a special dinner. I thought we could celebrate." "I'm not hungry," Solomon said flatly. "But I cooked all your favorite." "I said I'm not hungry, Azariah," Solomon snapped. "Why do you always have to make everything a big deal? I'm tired. I've been working all day. The last thing I want to do is sit through some fake romantic dinner because you need validation." I felt tears starting to form. "It's not fake. I just wanted to do something nice for our anniversary. We've been married for 25 years, Solomon. That's something to celebrate." "Is it?" Solomon said coldly. 25 years of you nagging me, 25 years of you failing to be the wife I need, 25 years of me supporting this family while you contribute nothing. Yeah, real celebration, worthy." Something broke inside me in that moment. After 25 years of being told I wasn't good enough, after 25 years of begging this man to love me, something finally snapped. "I contribute nothing," I said, my voice shaking. "Solomon, I've given you everything. I've raised your children. I've kept your house. I've stood by you through everything. I've endured your anger, your criticism, your—" I couldn't say the word abuse out loud, but we both knew what I meant. "And you say I contribute nothing." "That's right," Solomon said. "You do the bare minimum. Any woman could do what you do. You're nothing special, Azariah, you never have been." And then he said the words that would haunt me for years. "I never loved you," Solomon said. "I married you because I needed a wife, someone to take care of my house and give me children. That's all you've ever been to me, a convenience, not a partner, not someone I cherish, just useful, and honestly, you're not even that useful anymore." He walked past me to the bedroom. A few minutes later, he came back out carrying a suitcase. "I'm leaving," Solomon said. "I've met someone else, someone who actually makes me happy, someone who appreciates me. I'm filing for divorce." And just like that, after 25 years of marriage, after 25 years of me begging him to love me, Solomon walked out the door. I stood in that dining room, surrounded by candles and flowers and untouched food, and I collapsed onto the floor sobbing. 25 years. I'd given him 25 years, and he said he'd never loved me, not once, not ever. I'd spent 25 years begging for love from a man who never had any to give. And as I lay there on the floor crying, a thought occurred to me. a thought that would take me years to fully understand. Maybe the problem wasn't that Solomon didn't love me. Maybe the problem was that I'd been looking for love in a man instead of looking for it in God. But I wasn't ready to learn that lesson yet, not even close. Because after Solomon left, I made the same mistake all over again. Except this time, it wasn't with a husband. It was with my children. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. After Solomon left, I was 53 years old and alone for the first time in 25 years. The divorce was quick and brutal. Solomon didn't want the house, the furniture, or anything we'd built together. He just wanted out. "You can have it all," he told me through his lawyer. "I'm starting fresh." Starting fresh, with his new woman. Someone younger, prettier, better than me. At least that's what my mind kept telling me. The divorce devastated me, but I told myself I still had my children. Evangeline was 23. Josiah was 20. Nehemiah was 18. They were grown now, but they were still my bobbies, and I needed them more than ever. I was wrong to need them that way. Dead wrong, but I didn't know it yet. Evangeline was my oldest, and she'd always been the most like Solomon. Strong-willed, opinionated, and completely convinced she knew what was best for everyone else. 2 weeks after the divorce was finalized, Evangeline came to my house. I was so happy to see her. I'd been alone in that house, crying every day, barely eating. I needed my daughter. "Mama, we need to talk," Evangeline said, sitting down at my kitchen table without hugging me first. "What's wrong, baby?" I asked, sitting across from her. "Daddy told me his side of the divorce," Evangeline said. "And Mama, I have to be honest. I understand why he left." I felt like I'd been slapped. "What?" "Mama, you were too needy," Evangeline said bluntly. "Daddy said you were always wanting attention, always needing validation, always making him feel guilty for working hard. He said he felt suffocated. And honestly, I've seen it too." "Evangeline, that's not, your father abused me," I said, my voice breaking. "He hit me, he belittled me, Mama, stop," Evangeline interrupted. "Daddy never hit you. You're being dramatic. If he really abused you, why didn't you ever call the police? Why didn't you ever leave?" "Because I was scared," I said. "Because I had 3 children to raise. Because the church told me to stay. Because you were codependent," Evangeline said. "Mama, I'm a psychology major. I've studied this. You're codependent. You need people too much. You don't know how to be alone. That's why Daddy had to leave. You were draining him." I stared at my daughter in disbelief. "How can you say that to me? I'm your mother. I raised you. I protected you." "You smothered me," Evangeline said. "Mama, you were always so clingy, always wanting hugs, always wanting to talk, always wanting to spend time together. It was exhausting. I had to set boundaries with you when I moved out because you were calling me 5 times a day." "I just wanted to hear your voice," I said weakly. "Exactly," Evangeline said. "That's the problem. You want too much from people. You need to learn to be independent, find hobbies, make friends, stop depending on other people for your happiness." She stood up to leave. "Wait," I said desperately. "Evangeline, don't leave. I need you right now. I'm going through a really hard time." "And that's exactly what I'm talking about," Evangeline said. "Mama, I can't be your emotional support. I have my own life, my own problems. I can't carry your emotions too. You need to talk to a therapist or something." "But you're my daughter," I said, tears streaming down my face. "I know," Evangeline said, "but I'm not your therapist and I'm not your friend. I'm your daughter and I need space. Mama. I'm asking you, please stop calling me so much. Stop texting me all the time. Stop needing me so much. It's too much pressure." And she left. I sat at that kitchen table and cried for hours. My daughter, the baby I'd given birth to, the child I'd raised, the girl I'd loved with everything in me, had just told me I was too needy, too clingy, too much. But surely my sons would be different. Surely Josiah and Nehemiah would stand by me. I was wrong about that too. Josiah came to see me a week after Evangeline's visit. I'd been calling him every day, but he hadn't answered. When he finally showed up, he looked uncomfortable. "Hey, Mama," he said, barely making eye contact. "Josiah, baby, I'm so glad you're here," I said, hugging him tightly. He didn't hug me back. "I've been trying to reach you. Why haven't you been answering my calls?" "I've been busy," Josiah said, pulling away from the hug. "Mama, I can't stay long. I just came by to tell you something." "What is it?" I asked. "I've been talking to Dad," Josiah said, "and I've been thinking about the divorce. Mama, I think you should have tried harder to make the marriage work." I felt my stomach drop. "Josiah." "No, listen," he said. "Marriage is supposed to be forever, right? That's what the church teaches. But you gave up. You let Dad leave without fighting for him." "He left me," I said. "He said he never loved me. What was I supposed to fight for?" "You were supposed to forgive him and ask him to come back," Josiah said. "That's what a good Christian woman does. She forgives. She reconciles. But instead, you just let him go. You didn't even try to win him back." "Win him back," I repeated incredulously. "Josiah, he was with another woman. He'd already moved on." "Because you pushed him away," Josiah said. "Mama, Dad told me how you were, always complaining, always criticizing, always making him feel like he wasn't good enough. No wonder he found someone else." "That's not true," I said, my voice shaking. "Your father lied to you." "Don't talk about my father like that," Josiah said sharply. "He's a good man. He worked hard to provide for this family, and all you did was tear him down. I saw it, Mama. I was there. I heard you arguing with him. I heard you disrespecting him." "I never disrespected him," I said. "He disrespected me. He hurt me. Josiah, your father hit me. Multiple times. Did he tell you that?" Josiah looked away. "He said you provoked him." "Provoked him," I said, my voice rising. "There's no excuse for hitting someone. Josiah, how can you?" "I don't want to talk about this anymore," Josiah said. "Mama, I came here to tell you that I'm moving in with Dad. His new place has an extra room, and he's offered to let me stay there rent-free while I finish school. It's a better situation for me financially." "You're choosing him over me?" I asked, devastated. "I'm making a practical decision," Josiah said. "Mama, you need to stop making everything about you. Not everything is a personal attack." He left, and I was alone again. 2 of my 3 children had turned their backs on me, told me I was the problem, sided with their father who'd abused me for 25 years. But I still had Nehemiah, my youngest, my baby. Surely he would understand. Surely he would love me the way I needed to be loved. I was wrong about that too. Nehemiah. Nehemiah was 18 and about to start college. I'd been helping him fill out applications, costing for student loans, giving him money for application fees. I thought we were close. One evening, Nehemiah came over. I'd made his favorite dinner, spaghetti and meatballs. I set the table nice, put out garlic bread, even made a salad. I wanted him to know he was always welcome in my home. "Thanks for dinner, Mama," Nehemiah said, sitting down. But he seemed distracted, checking his phone constantly. "Is everything okay?" I asked. "Yeah," Nehemiah said. Mama, I need to tell you something." "What is it, baby?" I asked. "I've decided to go to college in California," Nehemiah said. "I got accepted to a school out there. I'm leaving in 3 months." "California," I said, shocked. "But that's all the way across the country. We talked about you going to the state university here. You could live at home and save money." "I don't want to live at home," Nehemiah said bluntly. "Mama, I need to get away." "Get away from what?" I asked, hurt. "From you," Nehemiah said. "Mama, you're a lot. Ever since Dad left, you've been calling me constantly, texting me, asking me to come over, needing me to fix things around the house, needing me to keep you company. It's too much." "I just don't want to be alone," I said quietly. "I know," Nehemiah said. "But Mama, that's not my responsibility. I'm 18 years old. I should be focusing on my future, not managing your emotions." "I'm not asking you to manage my emotions," I said. "I'm just asking you to love me, to be there for me. Is that too much to ask?" "When it's all the time, yeah, it is," Nehemiah said. Mama, I talked to Evangeline and Josiah. They told me what they said to you, and I agree with them. You're too dependent on us. You need to find your own happiness instead of depending on us for it. You're my children, I said desperately. Of course I depend on you. That's what family does. No, Mama, Nehemiah interrupted. Family supports each other, but what you're doing isn't asking for support. You're asking us to fill a void that we can't fill, and it's not fair to us. So you're abandoning me too, I said bitterly. I'm not abandoning you, Nehemiah said. I'm going to college. That's normal. But Mama, when I'm gone, I need you to respect my space. Don't call me every day. Don't text me constantly. Don't make me feel guilty for living my own life. He finished his spaghetti quickly and left. All 3 of my children had rejected me, told me I was too much, too needy, too clingy, too dependent. I sat in that empty house and realized something devastating. I'd spent 25 years giving everything to my children, sacrificing for them, protecting them, loving them, and now that I needed them, they all said I was asking for too much. I'd begged my children for the love I'd never gotten from their father, and they'd rejected me just like he had. The church. If my family wouldn't support me, maybe my church would. I'd been a faithful member of New Hope Baptist Church for 30 years. I'd sung in the choir, taught Sunday school, served on the hospitality committee. Surely the church family I'd served for 3 decades would be there for me now. The Sunday after Nehemiah left for California, I went to church. I sat in my usual spot in the 3rd row, but something was different. People who usually smiled and waved at me looked away. People who usually sat next to me left empty seats on either side of me. After service, I approached Sister Gladys, a woman I'd been friends with for 20 years. Sister Gladys, I said, can we talk? Oh, Sister Azariah, Sister Gladys said uncomfortably. I'm actually in a hurry today. Please, I said. I just need 5 minutes. I'm going through a really hard time with the divorce and my children, and I could really use some prayer. Well, we all have hard times, Sister Gladys said coolly. The Bible says we should count it all joy when we face trials. Maybe you should focus on what God is trying to teach you through this situation instead of complaining about it. I'm not complaining, I said, hurt. I'm asking for support. Support, Sister Gladys said. Sister Azariah, you've been divorced for 3 months now. At some point, you need to move on. Stop dwelling on the past. Stop making your problems everyone else's burden. We all have our own issues to deal with. She walked away. I tried talking to other church members, but they all had the same response. Some were cold. Some were judgmental. Some avoided me altogether. Then I understood what was happening. Solomon was still attending this church. He'd brought his new girlfriend, a woman 15 years younger than me named April, and the church had embraced her. I'd seen Solomon and April sitting in the back row during service. She was young, pretty, smiling. He had his arm around her. They looked happy. And the church had chosen them, not me, them. After service, I went to speak with Pastor Jenkins. He'd been the pastor for 20 years. He'd married me and Solomon. He'd baptized my children. Surely he would have wisdom for me. Pastor, can I speak with you? I asked. Sister Azariah, Pastor Jenkins said. Of course, come into my office. We sat down, and I poured out my heart. I told him about the divorce, about my children rejecting me, about feeling abandoned by the church. Pastor, I don't understand, I said, crying. I've served this church faithfully for 30 years. I've given my time, my talents, my money. And now that I'm in pain, everyone has turned their back on me. Why? Pastor Jenkins sighed. Sister Azariah, I'm going to be honest with you. Some people in the church have expressed concern about your emotional state. They say you're always crying, always asking for prayer, always talking about your problems. They feel like you're bringing negative energy to the church. Negative energy, I repeated. Pastor, I'm going through a divorce and my children have abandoned me. Of course I'm emotional. I understand that, Pastor Jenkins said. But Sister Azariah, the church is a place of worship, a place of joy, a place where we come to glorify God. When you're constantly upset, constantly needy, it affects the atmosphere. So you're saying I'm not welcome here anymore? I asked, shocked. I'm not saying that, Pastor Jenkins said. But I am saying that maybe you need to take some time away. Focus on your healing. Work through your issues. And when you're in a better place emotionally, you'll be welcomed back with open arms. Work through my issues where? I asked. This is my church. This is supposed to be where I find support. Prayer and fasting, Pastor Jenkins said. That's what you need. Take this trial to God. Let Him heal you. Stop depending on people and start depending on God. I walked out of that church and never went back. The spiral. After the church rejected me, I spiraled. I was 53 years old, alone, abandoned by my husband, my children, my church, and my friends. I had no one. I stopped eating regularly. I stopped sleeping well. I stopped taking care of myself. Some days I didn't even get out of bed. The only thing that kept me going was checking my phone. Hoping one of my children would call. Hoping someone would reach out. Hoping someone would remember I existed. But days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months, and nobody called. I tried reaching out to my children, but they'd all blocked my number. Evangeline had told me before she blocked me, "Mama, we all agreed. You need to learn to stand on your own. So we're cutting contact for a while. It's for your own good." For my own good. They'd abandoned me for my own good. I was completely, utterly alone, and I started to think dark thoughts. Thoughts about how much easier it would be if I just wasn't here anymore. Thoughts about how nobody would miss me. Thoughts about ending it all. One night I sat in my bathroom with a bottle of pills. I'd been hoarding them for weeks. Sleeping pills, pain pills, blood pressure pills, enough to do the job. I sat on the bathroom floor with those pills spread out in front of me, and I thought about my life. 53 years old. What did I have to show for it? A failed marriage to a man who'd never loved me. 3 children who'd rejected me. A church that had turned its back on me. No friends, no support, no purpose. I opened the first pill bottle. My hands were shaking. And then something happened. Something I can only describe as divine intervention. My phone, which had been silent for weeks, suddenly rang. I looked at the screen. It was a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Hello," I said, my voice hoarse from crying. "Is this Azariah Montgomery?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes," I said. "My name is Sister Philomena," the woman said. "I'm calling from Restoration Ministries. We're a small church on the other side of town. I was praying this morning and God put your name on my heart. I don't know why and I don't know how I got your number, but I felt strongly that I needed to call you right now. Are you okay?" I looked at the pills spread out in front of me, at the bottles in my hands, at the desperate state I was in. "No," I whispered, "I'm not okay." "Can I come see you?" Sister Philomena asked. "Right now." "I don't know you," I said. "I know," Sister Philomena said, "but God knows you, and He sent me to you. Please let me come." Something in her voice, something warm and genuine and urgent, made me say yes. 20 minutes later, there was a knock on my door. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I put the pills away and stumbled to the front door. When I opened it, I saw a woman I'd never met before standing on my porch. She was in her late 60s, with silver hair pulled back in a bun and warm brown eyes that looked at me with such compassion that I immediately started crying. "Oh, honey," Sister Philomena said, opening her arms. "Come here." I fell into her embrace and sobbed. This stranger, this woman I'd never met, held me on my front porch and let me cry. She didn't tell me to stop. She didn't tell me to pull myself together. She just held me and whispered, "Let it out, baby. Let it all out." When I finally calmed down enough to speak, Sister Philomena came inside. She looked at the state of my house, the dishes piled in the sink, the mail scattered everywhere, the general chaos of depression, and she didn't judge. She just took off her coat and started cleaning. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Helping," Sister Philomena said simply. "You sit down. I'm going to make us some tea." I sat at the kitchen table and watched this stranger move around my kitchen like she belonged there. She washed dishes, made tea, and found some crackers in my pantry. She set everything in front of me. "Eat," she said gently. "You look like you haven't had a proper meal in weeks." "I haven't been very hungry," I admitted. "I know, baby," Sister Philomena said. "Depression will do that to you, but your body needs fuel, so eat a little something for me." I ate a few crackers and drank some tea. It was the first time I'd eaten anything in 2 days. "Now," Sister Philomena said, sitting across from me, "tell me what's going on." And I did. I told her everything. About Solomon and the 25 years of abuse, about the divorce, about my children rejecting me, about the church abandoning me, about feeling completely alone, about the pills in the bathroom. Sister Philomena listened to everything without interrupting. When I finished, she reached across the table and took my hands. "Azariah," she said, "I want you to hear me very clearly. What you've been through is not your fault. Your husband abused you. Your children are being selfish and cruel. Your church failed you. None of that is because you're too needy or too clingy or too much. Do you hear me?" I shook my head, but everyone says. "I don't care what everyone says," Sister Philomena said firmly. "I care what God says, and God says you are fearfully and wonderfully made. God says you are precious in His sight. God says He loves you with an everlasting love, not because of what you do or don't do, not because of how perfect or imperfect you are, but because you are His child." "But I don't feel loved," I whispered. "I've never felt loved." "I know," Sister Philomena said. "Because you've been looking for love in all the wrong places. You've been begging people to love you, your husband, your children, your church. But baby, people are flawed. People are selfish. People will fail you every single time. The only love that will never fail you is God's love." "I know God loves me," I said. "I've been a Christian my whole life, but it doesn't feel like enough. I need people too." "Of course you do," Sister Philomena said. "God created us for community, for connection. But here's what you don't understand yet. You can't receive love from people until you first receive it from God. You can't love others well until you first know how loved you are by God. And you can't have healthy relationships until you first have a healthy relationship with yourself and with God." "I don't understand," I said. "You've spent your whole life begging for love," Sister Philomena explained. "Begging your husband to see your worth, begging your children to appreciate your sacrifice, begging your church to value your service. But baby, when you beg for love, you're coming from a place of emptiness. You're trying to get people to fill a void that only God can fill. And when people can't fill that void because they're not capable of it, you feel rejected, abandoned, unlovable." Tears streamed down my face because every word she said was true. "But here's the beautiful truth," Sister Philomena continued. "God has been trying to fill that void your whole life. He's been pursuing you, calling to you, offering you unconditional, perfect, never-ending love. But you've been so busy chasing human love that you haven't stopped to receive His love." "How do I receive it?" I asked desperately. "I've prayed, I've read my Bible, I've gone to church. I've done everything I'm supposed to do." "It's not about doing," Sister Philomena said. "It's about being still, being present, being open to God's love. Azariah, when's the last time you just sat with God, not asking for anything, not performing or trying to be good enough, just sitting in His presence and letting Him love you?" I realized I'd never done that, ever. My whole relationship with God had been transactional. I did things for God, and I expected Him to give me things in return. But I'd never just received His love. "I don't know how," I admitted. "Then I'm going to teach you," Sister Philomena said, "starting right now." Sister Philomena moved in with me that night. Not permanently, but for 2 weeks. She slept in my guest room and spent every day teaching me how to receive God's love. The first lesson was silence. "We're going to sit in silence for 30 minutes, Sister Philomena said the next morning. "No TV, no phone, no distractions, just you and God." "What am I supposed to do?" I asked nervously. "Nothing," Sister Philomena said. "That's the point. You're not doing anything, you're just being present, being with God. But shouldn't I pray, read my Bible, do something spiritual? I asked. Eventually, Sister Philomena said. But first, you need to learn to just be. Most people can't sit in silence for 5 minutes without getting anxious. They need to be doing something, but God speaks in the silence. So we're going to sit and listen. We sat in my living room in silence. At first, it was torture. My mind raced with thoughts, worries about my children, regrets about my marriage, fears about my future. I kept wanting to check my phone, turn on the TV, do something. But Sister Philomena had told me to notice those urges without acting on them. So I did. I noticed how uncomfortable I was with silence. I noticed how much I needed distraction. I noticed how afraid I was of my own thoughts. And slowly, as the minutes passed, something shifted. The anxious thoughts quieted down, my breathing slowed. And in that silence, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not happiness, not excitement, just peace. A quiet, gentle peace that seemed to wrap around me like a blanket. When the 30 minutes were up, Sister Philomena asked, "What did you notice?" "I felt peaceful," I said, surprised. "For the first time in, I don't even know how long." "That's God," Sister Philomena said. "That peace you felt, that was Him. He's always there, Azariah, but you've been too busy chasing after people to notice." Over the next 2 weeks, Sister Philomena taught me other lessons. She taught me about God's love through Scripture. Not the verses I'd memorized in Sunday school, but verses I'd never really understood. Verses like, "The Lord your God is with you, the mighty warrior who saves. He will take great delight in you. In His love He will no longer rebuke you, but will rejoice over you with singing." Zephaniah 3:17. God delights in you, Sister Philomena explained. Not because of what you do for Him, but because you're His child. He rejoices over you with singing, Azariah. Can you imagine that? The God of the universe singing over you. I couldn't imagine it. It seemed too good to be true. She also taught me about boundaries. Real boundaries. Not the selfish boundaries my children had set to push me away, but healthy boundaries that protect your peace. You can love people without letting them abuse you, Sister Philomena said. You can pray for your children without chasing them. You can forgive your ex-husband without letting him back into your life. Boundaries aren't about shutting people out. They're about protecting what God has placed inside you. She taught me about identity, about how I'd built my entire identity around being a wife and mother, and when those roles were taken away, I didn't know who I was anymore. "Who are you, Azariah?" Sister Philomena asked one day. Not who are you in relation to other people, not I'm so-and-so's wife or I'm so-and-so's mother. Who are you? I couldn't answer. I didn't know who I was apart from those relationships. "Then we need to find out," Sister Philomena said. "Because until you know who you are, who God created you to be, you'll keep giving your power away to people who don't deserve it." We spent days exploring this question. Sister Philomena asked me about my interests, my dreams, my gifts, things I'd never thought about because I'd been too busy serving everyone else. I discovered I loved to paint. I'd always been artistic as a child, but I'd given it up when I got married because Solomon said it was a waste of time. Sister Philomena bought me art supplies, and for the first time in 30 years, I painted, and I was good at it. I discovered I loved to write. Sister Philomena encouraged me to journal, and I found that writing helped me process my emotions in ways I'd never been able to before. I discovered I loved gardening. I started planting flowers in my neglected backyard, and watching things grow gave me hope that maybe I could grow too. "These aren't just hobbies," Sister Philomena explained. "These are pieces of who God created you to be, pieces you buried because you were too busy trying to be what everyone else needed you to be." 2 weeks into Sister Philomena's stay, something happened that changed everything. My daughter Evangeline called. It was the first time I'd heard from any of my children in 4 months. My heart leaped when I saw her name on my phone's screen. "Mama," Evangeline's voice was cold. "I need you to do something for me." Not "how are you," not "I've missed you," not "I'm sorry," Just, I need you to do something." "What is it?" I asked, my heart already sinking. "I'm having car trouble," Evangeline said. "My transmission is going out, and I need $1,500 to fix it. Can you send me the money?" Everything in me wanted to say yes, wanted to send the money immediately, wanted to do whatever it took to make my daughter happy so she'd love me again. But Sister Philomena was sitting across from me, watching, and I remembered what she'd taught me about boundaries. "Evangeline," I said slowly, "you haven't spoken to me in 4 months. You blocked my number. You told me I was too needy. And now the first time you call me, it's to ask for money." "Mama, I don't have time for this," Evangeline said impatiently. "Do you have the money or not?" "I have it," I said, "but I'm not going to give it to you." There was silence on the other end. Then, "What?" "I said I'm not going to give it to you," I repeated, my voice stronger now. "Evangeline, you're 42 years old. You have a good job. You're capable of solving your own problems. And I'm not going to rescue you just so you'll talk to me." "Are you serious right now?" Evangeline said, her voice rising. "Mama, I'm your daughter. You're supposed to help me when I need help." "I will help you when you treat me with respect," I said. "When you apologize for abandoning me when I was going through the hardest time of my life. When you acknowledge that you sided with your father even though he abused me. When you stop using me and start actually caring about me. Then I'll help you, but not before." "You're being selfish," Evangeline spat. "No," I said calmly. "I'm being healthy. There's a difference." "Fine," Evangeline said. "Don't send the money, but don't expect me to call you again either." "If the only time you call me is when you need something, then I don't want you to call me," I said, and I hung up. I sat there shaking, staring at the phone. I just set a boundary with my daughter for the first time in her life, and it felt terrifying and empowering all at once. Sister Philomena smiled at me. "I'm proud of you." "I feel terrible," I admitted. "That's normal," Sister Philomena said. "People who are used to you having no boundaries get angry when you start setting them. But you did the right thing. You can't let people use you just because you're afraid of losing them." "But what if I do lose her?" I asked. "What if she never calls me again?" "Then you'll grieve that loss," Sister Philomena said gently. "But as our Raya, you've already lost her. She's not in your life in any meaningful way. All you've lost is the illusion that if you just give her what she wants, she'll love you. And that illusion was killing you." She was right. I knew she was right, but it still hurt. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Evangeline, about my other children, about Solomon, about everyone who'd hurt me. At 2 a.m., I got up and went to my living room. I sat in the darkness and I prayed. Really prayed. Not the performative prayers I'd prayed in church my whole life, but honest, raw prayers. "God," I said out loud, "I don't understand. I've been a good person. I've tried to love people. I've tried to be a good wife, a good mother, a good Christian. So why does everyone leave me? Why does everyone hurt me? What's wrong with me?" And in that moment, in the silence of my living room at 2 a.m., I heard God speak to me, not audibly, but clearly, a voice in my spirit that said, "Nothing is wrong with you. You've been looking for my love in people who can't give it, but I've been here all along. I've never left you. I've never stopped loving you. You just never stopped looking for love long enough to receive mine." I started crying, not sad tears, different tears, tears of recognition, of understanding. God had been there my entire life, through the abuse, through the divorce, through the rejection. He'd been there, but I'd been so focused on begging people to love me that I'd never turned to him. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I'm so sorry I didn't see you. I'm sorry I kept looking everywhere else when you were right here." And I felt something I can only describe as a divine embrace. Like God himself wrapped his arms around me and held me while I cried. For the first time in my 53 years, I felt truly loved. Not because someone told me they loved me, but because I finally understood, deep in my soul, that I was loved. Always had been, always would be. By a God who would never leave me, never reject me, never tell me I was too much. I was enough for him, just as I was. Broken, messy, imperfect, I was enough. The next morning, Sister Philomena announced it was time for her to leave. "But I'm not ready," I said, panicking. "I still need you." Sister Philomena smiled. "Do you hear yourself? I need you. As Araya, you don't need me. You need God, and you have him. You've always had him." "But what if I forget everything you taught me?" I asked. "You won't," Sister Philomena said. "Because what I taught you isn't information, it's transformation. You're different now. You know who you are, you know whose you are, and that can't be taken away." "Will I ever see you again?" I asked. "Maybe," Sister Philomena said. "If God wants us to cross paths again, we will. But as Araya, I wasn't sent here to be your permanent crutch. I was sent here to show you that God loves you enough to send help when you need it most. I was sent here to wake you up, and now you're awake." She hugged me goodbye and left. I stood at my door watching her drive away, and I realized something profound. Sister Philomena wasn't just a kind woman who'd helped me. She was an angel. Literally or figuratively, I didn't know. But she'd been sent by God at the exact moment I needed her most. And if God loved me enough to send her, then maybe, just maybe, I was worth loving after all. 6 months after Sister Philomena left, my life looked completely different. I'd started attending Restoration Ministries, the church she'd mentioned. It was small, only about 50 members, but they were real, genuine. They didn't judge me for being divorced. They didn't tell me to just pray harder when I was struggling. They loved me, really loved me. I'd made new friends, women who were also learning to heal from trauma, from bad relationships, from churches that had wounded them. We met weekly for Bible study and prayer, but mostly we just supported each other. I'd started painting regularly. I'd even sold a few pieces at a local art fair. It wasn't about the money. It was about rediscovering a part of myself I'd buried for 30 years. I'd lost 20 pounds, not because I was trying to, but because I was taking care of myself, eating better, walking every morning, treating my body with respect instead of neglect. I'd set up boundaries with my children. I sent them each a letter explaining that I loved them, would always be their mother, but I would no longer accept being used or disrespected. If they wanted a relationship with me, it would be on terms of mutual respect, or nothing at all. None of them had responded yet, and it hurt, but it didn't destroy me, because I'd learned that their rejection of me didn't define my worth. I was also healing financially. I'd gotten a part-time job at a local bookstore. It didn't pay much, but I enjoyed it, and I was slowly rebuilding my savings. But the biggest change was internal. I no longer woke up every morning with a crushing sense of loneliness. I no longer checked my phone, constantly hoping someone would reach out. I no longer begged God to bring people back into my life. Because I'd finally learned what Sister Philomena had tried to teach me. I didn't need people to complete me. God completed me, and anything else, relationships, friendships, family, was a bonus, not a necessity. I'd spent 40 years begging for love, and I should have been asking God all along. But just when I thought I'd learned that lesson completely, something happened that would test everything I'd learned. 8 months after Sister Philomena left, I was sitting in my living room painting when my doorbell rang. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I wasn't expecting anyone. I put down my brush and went to the door. Standing on my porch were all 3 of my children. Evangeline, Josiah, and Nehemiah, together, for the first time in over a year. My heart immediately started racing. Every instinct in my body wanted to throw the door open, hug them, tell them how much I'd missed them. But I'd learned better. I'd learned to pause, to breathe, to remember who I was. "Mama," Evangeline said, "can we come in?" I looked at their faces. Evangeline looked tired, older somehow. Josiah looked uncomfortable, wouldn't meet my eyes. Nehemiah looked genuinely sad. "Why are you here?" I asked. "We need to talk to you," Evangeline said. "Please, it's important." Everything in me wanted to say yes immediately, but I'd learned about boundaries, about protecting my peace. "Have you come to apologize?" I asked. Because if this is about needing something from me, the answer is no. "Mama, please," Nehemiah said, his voice breaking. "Just let us in. We drove 2 hours to get here." I looked at my youngest son, at the tears in his eyes, and against my better judgment, I opened the door. They came inside and sat in my living room. I noticed them looking around, seeing the changes. The paintings on the walls, the new furniture, the plants thriving in every corner, the peace that permeated the space. "Your house looks different," Josiah said. "I'm different," I replied simply. "So what do you want?" Evangeline took a deep breath. "Mama, we came to tell you that Dad is sick." My stomach dropped. "What?" "He has cancer," Evangeline said. "Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. The doctors say he has maybe 3 to 6 months left." I sat down slowly. Solomon, dying, I didn't know how to feel. After everything he'd done to me, part of me felt nothing. Another part felt sad for the man he could have been but never was. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said carefully. "But why are you telling me?" "Because he wants to see you," Josiah said. "He's been asking for you. He says he needs to talk to you before he dies." "No," I said immediately. "Mama," Evangeline started. "No," I repeated more firmly. "I have no desire to see your father. What we had is over. I've moved on. I hope he finds peace, but I can't help him with that." "He's dying," Evangeline said. "He wants to make amends, to apologize. Don't you want closure?" "I have closure," I said. "I closed that chapter of my life when he left me. I don't need his apology to move forward. I've already moved forward." "That's cold, Mama," Josiah said. "No," I said. "It's healthy. Your father had 25 years to apologize. He had 25 years to treat me with respect and love. He chose not to. And now that he's dying and afraid to face God, he wants me to absolve him of his guilt. That's not my job." "So you're just going to let him die with this burden on his conscience?" Evangeline asked. "His conscience is between him and God," I said. "I've forgiven him for my own peace, but forgiveness doesn't mean I have to give him access to me. I don't owe him anything." "He's our father," Nehemiah said quietly. "He's dying alone, Mama. His girlfriend April left him when he got sick. He has no one." "And whose fault is that?" I asked gently. "Nehemiah, your father spent his life using people. He used me for 25 years. He used April until she saw who he really was. He burned every bridge he ever had. I'm sorry he's alone, but I can't fix that for him." "But you're a Christian," Evangeline said. "Aren't you supposed to forgive, show mercy?" "I have forgiven him," I said. "But mercy doesn't mean being foolish. Your father is a master manipulator. Even dying, he's manipulating you three to manipulate me, and I won't fall for it." "How can you be so hard?" Josiah asked. "After everything the Bible says about forgiveness and loving your enemies." "Don't you dare quote the Bible to me," I said, my voice rising. "Where was your concern for what the Bible says when your father was beating me, when he was verbally abusing me, when he abandoned me for another woman? You didn't care about the Bible then. You sided with him. You told me I was the problem. So don't come into my house now and try to use scripture to guilt me into doing something that would hurt me." They were all quiet. "Is that the only reason you came?" I asked. "To ask me to see your father?" They looked at each other. Evangeline spoke. "We also wanted to talk to you about us." "Go ahead," I said. "Mama, we know we hurt you," Evangeline said. "We know we weren't there for you when you needed us, and we're sorry." "Are you?" I asked. "Are you really sorry? Or are you sorry because your father is dying and you're realizing you might end up alone like him?" Evangeline flinched. "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" I said. "Evangeline, let me ask you something. In the past year, did you ever think about me? Did you ever wonder how I was doing? Did you ever feel guilty for abandoning me?" She didn't answer. "That's what I thought," I said. "You're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry that you're facing consequences. Your father is dying and you're scared you'll have no parents left. So now you're trying to rebuild a relationship with me. But it's not because you love me. It's because you need me." "That's not true," Josiah protested. "Isn't it?" I asked. "Josiah, you moved in with your father even though you knew he'd abused me. You chose his free rent over my well-being. And Nehemiah, you went to California and blocked my number because I was too much. All three of you abandoned me when I was at my lowest point. You told me I was needy, clingy, too dependent. You cut me out of your lives, and now you're back, not because you've changed, but because you're scared. Maybe that's true, Nehemiah said, tears streaming down his face. Maybe we are scared, but Mama, we're also realizing what we lost. I'm in California and I'm miserable. I have no real friends. School is hard. I'm lonely. And I keep thinking about how I treated you, how I pushed you away when all you wanted was to love me. His tears were genuine. I could see that. And my heart broke for him. But I also knew I couldn't rescue him from consequences he needed to face. Nehemiah, I appreciate your honesty, I said gently. But baby, you can't come back into my life because you're lonely and need me to fill that void. That's the same pattern I lived in for 40 years. I begged people to love me because I was lonely and empty, and it destroyed me. I won't be someone else's emotional crutch, not even my own son's. So what are we supposed to do? Nehemiah asked. Just stay away from you forever. No, I said, but you need to figure out who you are without me. You need to learn to be okay alone. You need to develop a relationship with God that fulfills you. And when you've done that, when you're not coming to me from a place of need but from a place of wholeness, then we can have a real relationship. That could take years, Josiah said. Then it takes years, I said. I waited 40 years to learn this lesson. You can wait however long it takes to learn it too. Evangeline stood up. You know what, Mama? You've changed, and not in a good way. You're right, I said. I have changed. I'm no longer the woman who begs people to love her. I'm no longer the woman who tolerates disrespect just to avoid being alone. I'm no longer the woman who gives everything and accepts nothing. I've changed into a woman who knows her worth. A woman who understands that God's love is enough. A woman who has boundaries and standards. And if you don't like that version of me, you're welcome to leave. Fine, Evangeline said. Let's go. Josiah stood up to follow her, but Nehemiah stayed seated. I'm not leaving, Nehemiah said. Evangeline turned. What? I said I'm not leaving, Nehemiah repeated, looking at me. Mama, you're right about everything. I came here today because I needed you, because I was lonely and scared and wanted you to fix it. But that's not fair to you. You've spent your whole life fixing other people's problems, and we've taken advantage of that. Nehemiah, let's go, Evangeline said impatiently. No, Nehemiah said, standing up to face his sister. Evangeline, we were wrong. We were wrong about Dad. We were wrong to take his side. We were wrong to abandon Mama. We were wrong about everything. And I'm tired of pretending we weren't. Don't be dramatic, Evangeline said. I'm not being dramatic, Nehemiah said, his voice rising. I'm being honest. Evangeline, do you even remember why we cut Mama off? Because she was too needy. But she was going through a divorce after 25 years of marriage. Of course she needed support. And instead of giving it to her, we told her she was the problem. We're terrible people. Speak for yourself, Evangeline said coldly. Fine, I'm a terrible person, Nehemiah said. I'm a terrible son. And I'm sorry, Mama. I'm so sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I don't expect you to let me back into your life. But I need you to know that I see what I did. I see how wrong it was. And I'm going to spend however long it takes becoming the kind of person who deserves to be your son. He turned and walked toward the door. Then he paused and looked back at me. I love you, Mama, Nehemiah said. And I'm sorry it took me losing you to realize how much. He left. Josiah followed him without saying anything. Evangeline stood there for a moment, glaring at me. You've poisoned him against me, Evangeline said. No, I said. He's finally seeing the truth. You're welcome to see it too whenever you're ready. Evangeline left without another word. I sat in my living room alone, shaking. That had been one of the hardest conversations of my life. Every instinct had wanted me to forgive them immediately, let them back in, try to fix everything. But I hadn't. I'd held my boundaries. I'd spoken my truth. And even though it hurt, I knew I'd done the right thing. 3 months later, Solomon died. Evangeline called to tell me. The funeral is Saturday, she said. I assume you won't be coming. You're right, I said. I won't be. That's what I thought, Evangeline said. Well, I just wanted you to know, in case you care. I do care, I said. I care that your father is no longer suffering. I care that you three are grieving. But I'm not coming to the funeral. That's not my place anymore." "Whatever," Evangeline said and hung up. I didn't go to Solomon's funeral, but I did pray for him. I prayed that in his final moments, he'd found peace with God. I prayed that he'd been honest about his life and received forgiveness. I prayed for my children as they dealt with their grief. But I didn't go, because that chapter of my life was closed, and I refused to reopen it. 6 months after Solomon's death, I received a letter in the mail. It was from Nehemiah. "Dear Mama," it began, "I've been in therapy for the past 6 months, working through a lot of things, understanding why I treated you the way I did, understanding the patterns I learned from Dad, understanding how to be a better person. My therapist helped me see that I was using you as an emotional dumping ground. When I was stressed or lonely or scared, I'd reach out to you and expect you to fix it. And when you needed me, I wasn't there, because I'd only ever learned to take, not to give. I'm learning to give now. I'm learning to be a whole person who can have healthy relationships. I'm learning to have a relationship with God that doesn't depend on what he can do for me, but on who he is. I'm not writing this to ask you to let me back into your life. I'm writing this to tell you that I'm finally becoming the man you raised me to be, the man you always believed I could be. And when I'm ready, when I'm truly ready, I'd like to have a relationship with you, a real one, built on mutual respect and love, not on need. Thank you for teaching me this lesson by refusing to enable me. You saved me, Mama. By saying no to me, you saved me. I love you. Always, Nehemiah." I cried reading that letter. Not sad tears, healing tears. My baby had finally gotten it. He'd finally understood. I wrote him back. "Dear Nehemiah, I'm so proud of you. Take all the time you need. I'll be here when you're ready. I love you. Always, Mama." 1 year after that difficult conversation in my living room, Nehemiah came back. But this time, it was different. He knocked on my door on a Saturday afternoon. When I opened it, he stood there with a small plant in his hands. "Hi, Mama," he said. "I brought you this. It's a peace lily. My therapist said bringing a gift is a good way to show that I'm here to give, not just to take." I smiled and invited him in. We sat in my living room and talked for 3 hours. Really talked. Not about his problems or his needs. We talked about life. About what I'd been painting. About his studies. About the books we'd been reading. About God and faith and healing. It was the best conversation I'd ever had with my son. Because for the first time, he wasn't there because he needed me. He was there because he wanted to know me. "Mama, can I ask you something?" Nehemiah said as he was getting ready to leave. "Of course," I said. "Do you think Evangeline and Josiah will ever get it?" he asked. "Will they ever understand what they did wrong?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "I pray they will, but that's between them and God. I can't control their journey. I can only control mine." "Do you still love them?" Nehemiah asked. "Always," I said, "but I love myself too now, and I won't sacrifice my peace for anyone, not even them." Nehemiah hugged me. "I'm proud of you, Mama, for choosing yourself, for choosing God, for showing me what it looks like to be whole." After he left, I sat in my living room thinking about my life. 69 years old now. I'd spent the first 68 years begging people to love me, and I'd spent the last year learning that I should have been asking God all along. 2 years after Solomon died, I stood in front of my small church at Restoration Ministries and shared my testimony. "My name is Azariah Montgomery," I began, "and I spent 40 years of my life begging people to love me. I begged my husband. I begged my children. I begged my church. I begged my friends. And not one of them gave me the love I was looking for. I thought something was wrong with me. I thought I was too needy, too clingy, too much. I thought if I could just be good enough, perfect enough, selfless enough, then finally, someone would love me the way I needed to be loved. But no one ever did, and I almost gave up on life because of it. But then God sent me an angel, Sister Philomena. She taught me something that changed my life. She taught me that I'd been looking for love in all the wrong places, that I'd been begging people to fill a void that only God could fill. And when I finally stopped begging people and started receiving God's love, really receiving it, not just acknowledging it intellectually, everything changed. I learned that God's love doesn't require me to be perfect. It doesn't require me to perform. It doesn't require me to earn it or beg for it. God's love is freely given, abundantly given, eternally given. And when I understood that, when I truly understood that I am loved by the Creator of the universe, I stopped needing validation from people who couldn't give it. I stopped tolerating abuse. I stopped accepting disrespect. I stopped begging, and I started living. Today, I'm 70 years old. My ex-husband is dead. 2 of my 3 children still won't speak to me. I live alone in a small house with my art and my garden and my peace. And I've never been happier. Because I finally understand what I should have understood 40 years ago. God's love is enough. It's always been enough. I just had to stop looking everywhere else to see it. So if you're here today and you're begging someone to love you, a spouse, a parent, a child, a friend, I want you to hear me. Stop begging. Turn to God, receive His love, and watch how everything changes. You don't need people to complete you. You need God, and He's been waiting for you to notice Him all along. The church erupted in applause. People were crying. After the service, dozens of people came up to me to thank me for my testimony. Women who were in abusive marriages, young people who'd been abandoned by their parents, elderly people who'd been rejected by their children. All of them begging for love they weren't receiving. All of them learning the same lesson I'd learned. That evening, I sat in my backyard watching the sunset. My garden was in full bloom. My peace lily that Nehemiah had given me was thriving on my porch. My latest painting was drying in my studio. My phone rang. It was Nehemiah. "Hey, Mama," he said. "Just calling to check on you." "I'm good, baby," I said. "Really good." "I heard about your testimony at church today," Nehemiah said. "One of the members posted it on Facebook. Mama, I'm so proud of you." "Thank you, sweetheart," I said. "I wanted to tell you something," Nehemiah said. "Josiah called me last week. He's finally left Dad's apartment. He said living there after Dad died was killing him. And he's been thinking about everything. About how we treated you. He's not ready to reach out yet, but I think he's getting there." "That's good," I said. "I'll keep praying for him." "And Evangeline," Nehemiah paused. "I don't know about Evangeline. She's still angry, still blames you for everything. But Mama, that's her problem, not yours." "I know," I said. "I pray for her too, but I can't fix her. Only God can." "I love you, Mama," Nehemiah said. "I love you too, baby," I said. After we hung up, I sat there thinking about my life, about all the pain, all the rejection, all the years of begging for love. And I realized something profound. Every single painful experience had been necessary. Every rejection had pushed me closer to God. Every abandonment had taught me that people will fail you, but God never will. Every moment of loneliness had prepared me to hear God's voice in the silence. I wouldn't change anything, because if I changed anything, I might not have learned the most important lesson of my life. I begged for love from people who couldn't give it. I should have been asking God all along. God's love had always been there, waiting, available, perfect, unconditional, eternal. I just had to stop looking everywhere else long enough to see it. And now that I'd seen it, now that I'd experienced it, I would never be the same. I was 70 years old. Most people would say my life was almost over, but I knew the truth. My life was just beginning. Because I'd finally learned how to live, not begging for crumbs of love from people who couldn't see my worth, but receiving the abundant, overflowing, never-ending love of a God who'd always seen me, always known me, always loved me. And that love, that beautiful, perfect, complete love, was enough. It had always been enough. I just had to stop begging and start receiving. And now that I had, I was finally, truly, completely free. This story teaches us. Sparkle's God's love is the only love that will never fail you. Sparkle's begging for love from people leaves you empty. Receiving God's love fills you completely. Sparkles you can't pour from an empty cup. Fill yourself with God first. Sparkles' boundaries aren't selfish. They protect the peace God has given you. Sparkles' people will fail you, but God never will. Sparkles, you are enough in God's eyes. You don't need anyone's validation. Sparkles' forgiveness doesn't mean giving people access to hurt you again. Sparkles' true love doesn't require begging. It's freely given by God. If this story moved you, subscribe for more powerful faith stories. Smash that like button. Turn on notifications. Drop a comment. Have you been begging for love from people instead of receiving it from God? What lesson from Azariah's story spoke to you? Where are you watching from? United States, United Kingdom, Canada, South Africa, Trinidad, Australia, Barbados. Remember, stop begging people to love you and start receiving God's love. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. God delights in you. His love never fails, never runs out, never disappoints. You don't need anyone's approval when you have God's love. Boundaries are biblical, protect your peace. Forgiveness is for you, not for them. You can love people without letting them abuse you. God's love is enough. It's always been enough. Your worth is not determined by who stays or leaves. True transformation comes from God, not people. You are complete in Christ. Never beg for love that God freely gives. Peace is more valuable than toxic relationships. God will send help when you need it most. Thank you for following Azariah's powerful journey from begging for human love to receiving God's perfect love.